Hi, hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Danielle, and today I will be presenting on the contemporary artist Kerry James Marshall. So my discussion is about how Kerry James Marshall, a contemporary visual artist, uses his body of work to combat racial stereotypes and draw attention to the underrepresentation of the Black community in American contemporary art institutions. Marshall's work changes the way the Black community is perceived in society through his signature stylized Black figures and monumental scale. Through strategies of counter memory and multiple histories, Marshall's work addresses how the past is present, calling attention to the victimization of Black Americans and educating viewers about Black cultural practices and everyday spaces. Counter memory, a term coined by Michel Foucault, is the idea that history is made up of a large string of narratives and not just one. Born in Birmingham, Alabama in 1955 and raised in Los Angeles, Kerry James Marshall bared firsthand witness to the civil rights movement and Black Power movement. Growing up in an era when there was great political turmoil across the country, Marshall felt it was his duty to become an advocate for equality and make his voice heard. I am going to analyze Marshall's celebrated works, A Portrait of the Artist as a Shadow of His Former Self, 1980, Untitled, 2008, Great America, 1994, and School of Beauty, School of Culture, 2012. These different genres and eras of paintings address the issues of Black invisibility, counter memory, multiple histories, and the standards that Marshall and the Black community struggle to compete with in their daily lives. I'm hoping to showcase that this notion extends into almost all facets of the lives of Black Americans and forces them to live in the state of a double consciousness. I'm going to demonstrate how each piece amplifies the layered struggles faced by the Black community, such as living in a state of dual consciousness, facing impossible beauty standards, and other ongoing prejudices, such as the perpetuation of toxic stereotypes that have the potential to put the lives of innocent Black Americans in danger. In this first piece, Marshall utilizes portraiture to explore the idea of Black visibility and invisibility, whilst reflecting on his own identity. He does not visually represent himself in this piece or the series and purposefully leaves the identity of the figures ambiguous. In 1980, Marshall began his exploration of portraiture and the self. Marshall says the piece, A Portrait of the Artist as a Shadow of His Former Self, was, quote, the first time I used a Black silhouette against a nearly Black background, and the first time I was completely conscious of what I was doing all the way through, end quote. Another piece that he produced, titled Untitled, 2008, is a large-scale figure painting featuring one of Marshall's stylized Black figures. The figure is painting, and he has his palette dipped towards the viewer. There are only two different tones of paint that meet the viewer at eye level and are simultaneously untouched. These tones lie directly next to each other, and they are black and white. The painter dips his brush into the black, and the white pales in comparison to it. In reference to this technique, art historian Peter Erickson states, quote, the painted figure so strongly and beautifully asserts his power. The circle of black paint in the center pushes the muted white circle off to the side, end quote. Through this aspect of the piece, it is as if Marshall is telling the audience that he will not let white oppressors overtake his pride in being a Black man. The figure's gaze is fixed on the viewer and is unwavering. When discussing the way Marshall intended to depict his silhouettes, he goes on to say, quote, I was playing at the boundary between a completely flattened out stereotype and a fully resonant, complicated, authentic representation, a Black archetype. The archetype allows for degrees of complexity that the stereotype always minimizes or undermines, end quote. Marshall wanted to avoid the stereotypical depiction of Black people in racist media that has existed since the creation of the United States as we know it. He wanted to fight back against the stigma created by racist media by getting rid of the negative connotations associated with the depiction of a saturated Black figure. In this next work, Great America 1994, Marshall revisits the past to tell the story of the unjust actions done to Black people throughout history. The very foundation of America was created upon the forced labor of enslaved people, and America's racist ideals are inextricably woven into this foundation. In Marshall's Great America, he tells the story of citizens being trafficked across the Middle Passage to be taken into slavery. The composition is largely blue with a cooler color palette, with a lot of white used throughout as well. While the figures in boat have been rendered with some weight and feel three-dimensional, some aspects of the piece are flat and sticker-like the firework and the medical cross. This piece is a reimagined version of the national anthem with multiple aspects alluding to it. The dawn's early light is depicted on the horizon line, but the light is distorted, hazy, and off-center. The rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, is depicted on the red firework-shaped text bubble, reading the interjection, "Wow." The streams from the firework make contact with some of the subjects and seem to brand their skin. We see the banner yet wave in the bottom of the composition. It is a white flowing banner featuring the title of the piece in red text. The boat is entering what seems to be a tunnel of horrors, with displeased spirits and a figure submerged in the water. These spirits are likely those of the enslaved people that lost their lives on their way to America. The theme of counter-memory is apparent throughout this piece, as it is retelling the history of slave trafficking. Through this next painting, Marshall uses counter-memory to acknowledge the lesser-known and underrepresented lifestyle and cultural scene of Black people that has largely and historically been overshadowed by America. Marshall's School of Beauty, School of Culture depicts a vibrant scene of many grown women and some of their children enjoying each other's company and receiving services in a beauty salon. The space is brightly lit and lively. The piece views is very warm with the red floor and radiant green walls. I believe Marshall was very purposeful in choosing the palette, as this painting exudes a welcoming aura. The salon is well lit with its heart-shaped mirrors and various string lights strewn throughout. The eye-level perspective works to make the viewer feel as if they are a guest or a friend at the parlor. All these women are seemingly embracing their natural hair and beauty, but cannot shake the imposition of white American beauty standards. This is pictured through a distorted depiction of Sleeping Beauty stamped very permanently into the ground, representing the psyche of these women. Sleeping Beauty is an anamorphic image. Through this technique, Marshall is referencing a Renaissance-era practice. He's playing around with what is and is not visible. Marshall's borderline subtle placement of Sleeping Beauty is very intentional. Its placement intends to show that despite the overbearing pressure to conform to a society that at every turn presents Black people with a new obstacle to overcome, this community continues to stay true to themselves. While it might weigh heavy on their minds, they do not let it impact the way they show themselves to society. They will not let it change their perspectives of themselves or let it impact the young and impressionable minds of their children. Every day, these women are actively working hard to fight back against generational trauma and forge a new path for their children and the generations that follow. Through the depiction of the history and daily life of Black Americans and his use of a rich, darkly painted figures, Kerry James Marshall inserts himself into the conversation of Black visibility and the idea of revisiting the past. This conversation was created and controlled primarily by the exclusive art institutions that is dominated by the oppressor. He confronts his viewers with the idea of multiple histories, the struggle of living in a state of double consciousness, and the marginalization of Black people. Marshall has made a name for himself as an artist that was able to create a space for himself as a Black man amongst many white artists. He has been able to reignite the conversation about the oppression of Black people and insert his narrative about the importance of being proud to be Black, while not forgetting that society still has a long way to go in the fight against racism. Thank you.